Imagine the smell of your own flesh rotting in the sub-zero cold. Your legs are crushed. Your plane is a smoking wreck, and 100 miles of frozen, wolf-infested forest stand between you and home. Most men would have pulled the trigger on their own pistol, but Aleksei Maresyev chose to crawl. For 18 days, he dragged his dying body through the snow, eating raw animals just to stay alive. But the most terrifying part? His nightmare was only just beginning. It was April 5th, 1942. The world was a frozen white desert near Staraya Russa in northwest Russia. A massive snowstorm blew through the thick forest. The snow was so deep that it swallowed every footprint. High above, the air screamed with the sound of engines. Soviet Yak fighters were fighting German Messerschmitt planes. You could hear the sound of machine guns and the loud thuds of shells exploding. In that chaos, Aleksei Petrovich Maresyev saw his world break apart. He was flying a Yak-1 fighter plane. Suddenly, a German ace pilot hit his plane. Smoke poured out of the engine. The controls shook violently in his hands. Aleksei tried to land in a small clearing, but the trees were like stone walls. The crash was terrible. The wings ripped off. The body of the plane crumpled, and Aleksei was thrown forward. His legs were crushed under the twisted metal. Pain exploded through his body. Blood soaked into his boots. He crawled out into the freezing air, gasping for breath, as his plane smoked behind him. This wasn't just bad luck for one man. It showed how the war was changing. In 1941, Hitler had invaded the Soviet Union. Thinking he would win quickly, the German army had moved fast, taking many prisoners. By winter, they were at the gates of Moscow. But the Soviet Red Army did not give up. They fought back and trapped 95,000 German soldiers in a pocket at Demyansk. Aleksei's crash happened during this time. It showed that the German army, which once seemed unstoppable, was now in a fight they couldn't easily win. The Soviets were proving they could survive anything and strike back. While the Germans relied on being better and faster, the Soviets relied on having more men, more machines, and a will that would not break. Out in the snow, Aleksei looked at his injuries. His legs were ruined, the bones were broken, and the skin was torn. He couldn't stand up. He couldn't walk. He was behind enemy lines, and German soldiers were searching the woods for him. The temperature dropped to minus 30 degrees Celsius at night. He had very little. His flight jacket, a pistol with a few bullets, a tiny bit of food, and a small brass compass. That compass became his best friend. In the middle of the storm, the needle stayed steady. It pointed northeast, toward his home and his army. Aleksei was ready for this pain because his whole life had been hard. He was born in 1916 near the Volga River. His father died when he was only 3, leaving his mother to raise 4 boys in poverty. As a child, Aleksei was weak and sick with fever. People felt sorry for him, but he refused to be weak. As a teenager, he worked hard in a factory. Later, he moved to the Far East to help build a new city in the freezing Siberian winds. He joined the army in 1937. He wanted to be a pilot more than anything. Even when doctors said he wasn't healthy enough, he never stopped trying. By 1940, he graduated from flight school with honors. He was a man who saw problems as things to be defeated. While Aleksei was in snow, the two sides were fighting a war of factories. Germany was efficient, but they made a huge mistake. They thought the war would only last 3 months. They didn't bring winter clothes or enough food for a long war. The Soviets, however, moved their factories to safety and started building machines at a shocking speed. In 1942 alone, they built 12,500 tanks and 25,000 planes. The Germans only built half that many. The Soviet planes, like the Yak Aleksei flew, were simple and tough. They were easy to fix and easy to replace. Aleksei began to crawl. Every inch he moved sent a wave of agony through his body. He couldn't use his legs, so he dragged himself using his elbows and hips. The snow soaked through his clothes and froze his skin. He ate tiny bits of chocolate and biscuits. To drink, he melted snow in his mouth. At night, he buried himself in the snow to stay warm. Once, a pack of wolves surrounded him. He used his pistol to fire a shot and scare them away. On the third day, he found a hedgehog. He killed it with a stick and ate it raw. It was disgusting and tough, but it gave him the energy to keep moving. He kept checking his compass. By now, the German army was suffering too. Outside Moscow, soldiers were freezing in their summer uniforms. They were so hungry they ate their horses. But Aleksei's situation was even worse. His legs were turning purple and smelled bad because of infection. He was burning with fever. He started to see things that weren't there. He saw his mother baking bread. He heard his brother's voices. But he didn't stop. On the 10th day, he found an old German camp and found a can of condensed milk. The sugar gave him a burst of life. He licked the sticky milk off his dirty, bloody fingers. It tasted like victory. It reminded him that he was still a human being. By day 12, he was so weak he could barely move. A bear came close to him, sniffing his wounds, but Aleksei stayed perfectly still until it left. By day 18, his legs were black with gangrene. He finally reached a village called Plavny. He collapsed. Some local children found him. He looked like a skeleton. They called for help, and he was taken to a hospital. The doctors looked at his legs and shook their heads. To save his life, they had to cut off both of his legs above the knee. Aleksei woke up in a Moscow hospital without legs. At first, he was angry. How can a pilot fly without legs? He asked. But then, he decided he wouldn't let it stop him. A famous writer visited him, and his story began to spread. Aleksei got prosthetic legs made of leather, metal, and wood. He practiced walking every day. He fell down hundreds of times, but he always got back up. He even learned how to dance with the nurses to improve his balance. Finally, he asked the army for a test. He wanted to fly again. In 1943, Aleksei was back in a plane. He proved he could do loops and dives just as well as any other pilot. He was sent back to the front lines in a new, powerful plane called the WWII. In July 1943, during the famous Battle of Kursk, he went on his first mission with his new legs. He was nervous, but when the enemy planes appeared, he knew what to do. He dove, fired his guns, and watched the German plane go down in flames. He was a pilot again. In one single fight, Aleksei shot down 3 German planes and saved a friend. He was a hero while German pilots were getting tired and losing hope. Aleksei was getting stronger. He shot down a total of 7 planes after losing his legs. His plane had, "For the Soviet people," written on the side. He could feel the leather straps of his fake legs digging into his skin and the sweat soaking into his bandages. It hurt every day, but he kept flying. He fought until 1944, leading other pilots and teaching them how to survive. Aleksei retired from the Army in 1946. He didn't just stop there. He went to school and got a PhD in history. He spent the rest of his life helping other war veterans. His story was turned into a book, a movie, and even an opera. He lived a long, modest life in Moscow. He married and had children. He always said, "I just did my duty." He died on May 19, 2001, just one day before his 85th birthday. Aleksei Maresyev's grave is in a quiet cemetery in Moscow. There is even an asteroid named after him. But his real legacy is the story of that 18-day crawl. It's a story about how one person's will can be stronger than a storm, stronger than an army, and even stronger than pain. His compass is now in a museum. The needle doesn't move anymore, but it still points to the truth. That history isn't just about dates and maps. It's about the quiet strength of a human being who refuses to give up.